the DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your midday market report for, yes, December 1st, 2022. We turned the page. November is gone. ECSI VIPs, what a way to close. 14-1, our last 15 to close out November. 4-0 to start the week here. It's Thursday. We're going to start calling this the Philly Special. That's exactly what we're calling it. Blessed and honored to have good friend Dan Alexander on. We won't be talking any lacrosse unless he's got some hot breaking news, which he broke last show. We'll be talking Eagles, maybe a little 76ers. Maybe he's got some insight on the Bills and the Pats tonight. But without further ado, let's bring him on, the one and only Mr. Dan Alexander.
Nowhere I would rather be, Jeff. Let's go. A little Philly special. I mean, we prove each and every time we come on the air together that Bostonians and Philadelphians, we can coexist. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be rivals, but we become friends for 30 minutes each and every Thursday, and been doing pretty good. We've been getting folks winners, and man, that 14-1 run for the ECSI VIPs. You do it again for them, Jeff. The Christmas presents are paid for. The neighbors' Christmas presents are paid for with that run, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. And a couple weeks prior, we went on a 10-11-1 run. We were living off our World Series with the Astros at 7-1. So it's been a great stretch. But what I like to tell and explain to all the newbies, listen, it's numbers. So the 14-1 is great. Buckle up because there's going to be some bumps and bruises coming.
Well, that's why one of the things that you preach, I mean, you're EC Sports investors. You're not EC Sports, hey, I'm Vegas Dave giving you goat whale plays. You preach good bankroll management, smart strategies to look at sports betting as an investment. And that's what I love about how this space has grown. Is I feel like there used to be this major divide between sharp sports bettors and recreational bettors, the pros versus the Joes. But shows like this, and ways that you have yourself tried to inform people, I think recreational sports bettors in the year 2022, if you're following a strict bankroll management strategy, I think they're sharper than they've ever been in sports betting. Would you agree? And I think line moves kind of even show that public moves aren't as dummy moves as they once were. Would you agree?
100%. And I always talk about the gut, meaning sometimes those moves, they smell I say the line gets a little stale, the game gets stale, and they're just trying to recreate some action on the game, and they move it so the person that works 8 to 4, 9 to 5 sees the move and he wants to follow the money and jump on it. Perfect example again is this morning. I wake up and the Bills are down to 3.5, and this is a Bills team. The last 2 times they played the Patriots, didn't even punt the ball. And I know Josh is maybe a little banged up. I know they're winning. I know they're not covering, but it's about 38 degrees, not a lot of wind. It's going to be a great atmosphere and a good game. I don't buy what Vegas is telling me right now. They're telling me 24-20 Bills, and I'd be surprised if the Bills don't get to 27, 28, or 30 here.
Well, doesn't something stink? Because yes, I think the sharp bettors came in and they snapped up all those 5.5s that were out there. All the 5s are gone too. And like you said, you're looking at 3.5 hanging at some shops. Circa's hanging 4. I always like looking at bookmaker odds as well and kind of see where they are. in conjunction to the marketplace. They're at 3.5, but they're juiced a little bit. -115 is what you're looking at that 3.5 on Bookmaker. So the thing is now everybody's betting the Bills because all those good numbers, all that great +5 that you're getting with the home dog, all the numbers about Bill Belichick as an underdog, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's betting Buffalo right now. We're seeing 61% of the money on them, but the line continues to come down. I don't know. I'm glad I grabbed my 5 earlier in the week because I'm staying away. I have some props that I'm playing in this game. I think a really sharp bet because it's incongruent to what the total is. You're looking at 45.5 was our opener. We've moved down to 43.5. A bet I have placed myself, Jeff, and I want to get your thoughts on it because you, like me, like diving a little bit deeper than your typical trends or your typical, just straight up bets and things like that. So I looked at the team total in the first half for the Buffalo Bills. I was able to find a 10.5 out there. It's as high as 13.5 in some places. If points are scored in this first half, it figures that the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to get some in. If we get 2 touchdowns, we get a touchdown, 2 field goals, we're over that 10.5 comfortably. So that's a bet I locked in. It was only -110. I'm pretty happy about that one. I think you can still get it out there.
That's a hell of a play. I mean, so they're trying to tell me that initially on your 10.5, the Bills would have been, let me see, they probably would have been 2.5 point favorites, at least in the first half. So they were trying to bait you initially, saying the first half score is going to be 10-7 or 10-3. And I'm not buying again what they're selling.
Well, and after we had this whole entire, oh my God, it's another primetime, it's going under, the last 6 primetime games have all hit the over. So the overs have been coming because of these adjustments to the numbers. I think, if Buffalo, they're going to try and get some bad taste out of their mouth, right? Because yes, they escaped against the Lions, but after that, they were the Super Bowl champion for the better part of the season, and now everybody's talking about them as like the second or third or even fourth best team in the AFC right now. What's a better way for them to come out than take on their rival? Now they get to be the big brother against Belichick. I think they start off sharp, so that 10.5 is a play that I like. You can still get it out there. I like it up to 11, even 12.5 over it. I think we see at least 13 points from the Bills here in the first half. The other one that I think people should hop on, and I'm not sure what the number is in front of me. I'll have to look up while we're on here. I grabbed early in the week Ramondre Stevenson over his receiving yards because I thought, there's been some injuries in the backfield for the Patriots, and also they've brought his usage along more, not just as a rusher, and he is their primary pass catching back. This is a Bills defense that succeeds yardage all the time to running backs. They can't run the ball worth a lick. They can't stop running backs worth a lick, especially in the passing game. We get 2 strong catches from Stevenson. I think we go over 31.5. I like that number probably all the way up to 35, 36.5 is a prop bet I have for you, Jeff. So it's not just the Eagles we have for you here.
Well, and I'll set the scene very nicely for you because they got this play all set. It's the play action pass and the wheel to the right with him, and it's been very effective when they do use it. So I'll be rooting for you there. I have him in a couple high stakes fantasy leagues. 2 weeks left, and it's showtime. And I need some big scores, and I'm hoping Stevenson finds pay dirt not once, not twice, but how about 3 times tonight?
And how about we do it on a 32-yard catch, right? Let's get a touchdown on a 32-yard catch. Let's do that, Jeff.
Prime time, you guys just shine on prime time. 2-1 on prime time. You had that little hiccup. You beat Minnesota on Sunday. Sunday night. In comes a wounded Packers team. We knew about Rodgers' thumb. He leaves late third quarter with what at first was saying oblique. Jordan Love comes in, gets 1 touchdown. That Christian Watson's got speed to burn. But I'm here to talk about your running attack. You got Jalen Hurts running for $170. You got Miles Sanders, who thank God had my guy, Miles Sanders, 130 yards, receiving yards, more touchdowns. Performance thoughts moving forward. You've talked about their struggles on stopping the run, and in comes O. Henry. But let's talk about the game against the Packers first.
Yeah. Yeah, so the game against the Packers kind of went the way that I thought it would. I think it got a little bit sweatier than maybe I expected. I told people early on in the week, grab that 6.5 on the Eagles because more money is going to come in on them. There was some buyback late on the Packers, and they made me sweat. I mean, those half points, Jeff, they giveth, they taketh away. This week I was able to taketh with it. But I think people are starting to see what I kind of believed about this Eagles team. I mean, we've been on several times here throughout the season. I don't think one time I've come on here and told you it's a Super Bowl year for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're a fine team. I think, they're a solid team. I think they're one of the top teams in the NFC. How much is that really worth, though? Because I would argue the top team in the NFC in the 49ers just got over 500. So here's the thing with the Eagles is down this stretch, they need to get wins. You know what I mean? I'm glad that they were able to pull one out against the Colts. I think that was a gritty win. I think it showed that even when they play their worst game of the season, some people might think that was against the Commanders, but there were some fluky turnovers in that game. There were some tough situations. So I would argue worst overall game they played was against the Colts, and they were still able to pull it out in the end of the game because of that running attack that you alluded to, because of what a special player that Jalen Hurts is. So I think that was a lot of people looked at as told you so game for the Eagles. Maybe it's because I'm an Eagles fan. I looked at it more as a statement that, hey, we can play poorly and still get a win in the NFL, because wins in the NFL don't come easy, Jeff. I mean, if you're able to get a dub, it doesn't matter if you roll a team. It doesn't matter if you win by the skin of your teeth. They're ultimately important. I think what you saw in that Green Bay game is that there's going to be a regression to the mean for this Philadelphia Eagles team, because you're already seeing the turnover bug has started to bite them over these last few weeks. It's because they got through the first 11 weeks of the season as the best ever turnover ratio that we've seen. They only gave the ball away 3 times, and they had umpteen turnovers during that stretch that they were able to force. So turnovers in the NFL is not a stat you can point at and say, look at how good this team is. I would argue it's a stat you can point out and say, look at how lucky this team has been. And people are going to gripe about the Eagles schedule, blah, blah, blah. That's for the talking heads to debate. I think this Eagles team is solid. I don't know how many spreads they're going to cover down the road, but as a fan, all I'm looking for them to do is win these games, which is why I think they're, as a teaser candidate, a terrific one, because I think they've shown they're good enough to win games. I just don't know if they're a strong enough team offensively, or probably defensively more so, to be constantly covering spreads when they're laying points against teams, especially teams that have good rushing attacks, something we also talked about.
Before we break down the game against Tennessee here, you talked about the 49ers, and the only other team that I can put in that spot is your divisional rival, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, again, we know here the best back on their team is Pollard, but they still have Zeke.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Dak in a pressure spot in the playoffs do very, very well. There's talks they could bring OBJ on. If I was the Eagles guy, I would say, please bring him on. You don't need the distraction. You don't need any of that bull. Just let him sit there and suffer there. Do you fear the Niners more than Dallas? Or do you also, because of the defense, because of Micah Parsons, do you fear them come a playoff spot as well?
Yeah, I mean, I always fear the Cowboys. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not one of those Eagles fans that, oh, Dallas sucks, whatever. I think if they had a different head coach, I would maybe fear them a lot more. I don't really have much love for McCarthy. I think his Super Bowl that he has was more of a product of a perfect storm going around there. But since Dak has come back, and it's not like Dak's been putting up crazy numbers, this team just seems a little bit more identity driven. They feel like they know what they do. They know what they do well. I don't think that their defense is as great as everybody puts them out to be. I think you've constantly seen teams be able to put up points in bunches on them. Look at what Green Bay did against them. Once they started going away from the run game, they were able to crawl back in, get that win outright on the home. You thought the season was saved, blah, blah, blah. But I think the number one threat to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC is by far the 49ers. That's why when these, I hesitate to say square, but when you just hear people at the barber shop or at the bar, well, the 49ers can't be that good, right? They only have, 5 wins, 6 wins. This team also started the year with a essentially quasi rookie quarterback in Trey Lance. They didn't even allow Jimmy Garoppolo to look at the playbook, so they kept him clean in case they were going to be trading him. And since Jimmy G's came back, do I think he's the best quarterback in the world? No, but I think he is a guy who is not going to lose you many games. He might not do anything to win you any games with an arm, but now you got Christian McCaffrey. Him being able to even throw passes downfield. I think first game he exploded. He passed for one, ran for one, caught for one. Deebo Samuel, you have Ayuk. I mean, that offense is just so insanely tough to defend. And what Kyle Shanahan does schematically, sure, he maybe leaves a little bit to desire as far as the win column goes, but I think they are just a tough out. And we haven't even talked about the defensive side of the ball, Jeff. Bosa, the pass rushers they have, that back end with the secondary, with even some younger players playing like they're veterans. I think if you want to try and get down a future, you may have even lost a lot of value on it. I bought in on the 49ers when they were at their low point because that roster is just too damn good. Yeah, I think the Eagles, I would put them even with Dallas. You know what I mean? Like, I think the 49ers should be about a 2-point favorite over the Eagles and over Dallas. So I think it's 49ers number 1, and then you have 1 and 1A or 2 and 2A, I guess, so to speak. That's Dallas and Philadelphia. I think you're going to learn a lot on that game that's on Christmas Eve. Hopefully I'm not having an Eagles loss for my Christmas present, Jeff.
Would you fear, because let's say you don't get the 1 spot, which again, if you didn't,
they're in trouble.
Then Minnesota, which I'm the one sarcastically on Sportsbook Confessions with Dave Sharapan, our buddy, and Brady Tinker. I've been saying all year long, just as a kind of a joke, Kirk Cousins at 40-1 was your MVP because Justin Jefferson, yada, yada. And then they rattle off 9-1, 9-2 now.
Yep.
The one name I'm just going to bring up, would you fear a home game in the playoffs against the Bucs and Tom Brady?
You have to, right? Because Brady, until he's out of the league, I'm never going to count out Tom Brady. I do think the whole entire Tampa Bay is back kind of got overblown a little bit. I think they're a fine team. They're going to make the playoffs. And once they're in, who knows? I think that's why it is so ultimately important for the Philadelphia Eagles to have the 1 seed, because if they have to travel, it's not going to be good for them. And also they had one of those earlier bye weeks, so they need a week off of getting some rest because they didn't even get their quasi bye week for playing Thursday night football because that was right around where their bye week was. So we talked about how that added more rust than rest to them. So that 1 seed is so ultimately important. And yes, I have seen Tom Brady dancing in my nightmares many a time. We got him once, 41-33. We got him once. Other than that, it hasn't been too great when Tom Brady's come to town. If the Eagles are hosting the Bucs, I feel fine about it. I feel fine about the Eagles hosting anybody. The home field advantage has been very real for this Philadelphia Eagles team under Nick Sirianni. Outside of that little blemish that we saw the other week against Commanders, and that was all to gain for the Commanders, nothing really to lose for the Philadelphia Eagles. Horrible spot for the Birds. I was on the Commanders in that game. Going back to Sirianni's first year last year, the Eagles are the best in the NFL as home favorites with 5 or more games of a sample size. The Birds are 7-1-1 as home favorites against the spread, covering the spread on average by 3.1 points per game. So not only are they covering, they're covering by a field goal in those aspects. So if the Eagles are the home team, I don't think I fear anybody coming to town. Am I maybe going to take some points with some teams? Maybe, but I think if the Birds are able to get that 1 seed, Jeff, I feel really good about their chances because I think the NFC, it's really a very parity-driven year. I don't think there's really many top teams that are worlds above anyone in the NFL this season. I don't think the Chiefs are as good as they've even seen. So, both sides of the ledger, NFC, AFC, I think we're going to see some shockers in the playoffs. That's all I'll say.
In comes O. Henry. An actual true number was 6-44. It's down to 5-4.5 now at DraftKings with a 44.5. We've talked about the struggles against the run. Obviously, if you can make Tannehill throw the ball and take it out of O. Henry's hands, you're obviously doing very well, I think, on the scoreboard. Something I haven't heard on Twitter, and maybe they're just sleeping on it. Nice A.J. Brown revenge game here, as no one's talking about, but in come the Titans, and A.J. will say, you want to trade me? Okay, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jeff, I'm going to have A.J. Brown anytime touchdown on the ledger. You know that for sure.
So thoughts going into that game?
This is a tough game, man, because it's strength on strength. I mentioned how great the Philadelphia Eagles have been as home favorites, which is the role that they're in now. Titans as road underdogs under Vrabel, man. 14-9 against the number since Vrabel was hired in 2018, covering the spread by an average of 4.5 points. Now, I will say a lot of people are talking upset here. I don't know if I would go that far because, yes, they've been terrific against the spread, but their margin of victory is a negative 1.5 points. So that means they're not winning all of these games outright. They're making you sweat a little bit. They're 3-1 this year against the spread as road underdogs are the Tennessee Titans. But I think so much of what we do, Jeff, is try and find value, right? And I think the professional bettors already grabbed all the value that you're going to get. They squeezed the towel dry, so to speak, on the Titans. If you could have gotten 7, great. If you could have gotten 6.5, terrific. That's a great bet. Even 6, Eagles win by a touchdown. You're pushing it the absolute worst. Great bet there. But now we're at 5.5. We're moving down to 4.5 in some shops, Jeff. I think this is a little bit of an overreaction to what you saw last week. Yes, the Philadelphia Eagles had the back door swinging in the wind, but if you got the best number on them, you covered that game. I think people are looking at what happened against against the Colts and said, man, this Eagles team is an absolute fraud. I just don't see it. If you were able to get that 7 with the Titans, kudos to you. That's a great bet. If you're laying or you're trying to hop in on the train late now at 4.5, I think I think that's a bad bet to make. And there's still professional bettors who are going to tell you, give me the 5, give me the 4.5. I think the Eagles win this game. I think the Eagles win this game by a touchdown. I think, as you said, the absolute key is bottling up Derrick Henry. Can they bottle up Derrick Henry? Probably not. But do you think I'm going to be sweating Ryan Tannehill if it does happen? He's, 20th worst in QBR this season. He's very bottom of the league in just yards gained this season is Tannehill, and he's playing against an Eagles defense that across most metrics are top 5 or higher against the pass. So if the Eagles are able to at least stymie Henry and force, them to pass the ball downfield, I like the Eagles' chances, even with the injuries that they've had here in the secondary. I think you're potentially getting Jordan Davis back. If you just look at the numbers, this Eagles rush defense with and without Jordan Davis, and that was before they added Ndamukong Suh and Linval Josephs, who have added a nice little boon to that rush defense. Fletcher Cox looks like he can finally play again because he's not having to expend so much energy on every snap. You bottle up Derrick Henry, the Philadelphia Eagles win this game by at least a touchdown. If you can't bottle him up, it's a long day. The score probably goes under. Titans probably cover. Eagles probably win by a field goal. A lot of people are talking about money line sprinkles. I wouldn't do it. I'm not trying to be a homer. I just think that the Eagles are in a prime spot right here with everybody thinking they're a little bit fraudulent. This team with Sirianni, a master motivator, I think he's going to have people buying in. He's going to be pointing, hey, look at all this money that's coming against you guys. Nobody's respecting you, and you have 1 loss on the year. Could be a statement win by the Eagles here in the 1 o'clock window.
I agree. I'm going to change gears here, and it's kind of comical. Boston Garden, home of the Bruins and the Celtics.
Do they ever lose there? Do they ever lose, Jeff?
The two teams combined to start the year are 24-1. The Bruins are undefeated at the Garden, and the
Crazy.
Celtics have one loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Cavs are
J-
good,
yes. Jason Tatum now near the top, if not at the top, is your MVP favorite.
as he should be.
You're a Sixer guy. I heard Harden coming back potentially for the Houston game. Give us the 76er report.
Man, it's so you've been on the Cash Considerations podcast. You know that each and every week we play the song for the 76ers, and every week I do it with chagrin and shame because it's just hard for me to get excited about this Philadelphia 76ers team because of the guy who's at the head of the clubhouse. I liked Doc Rivers as the hire. I mean, Doc Rivers got you one of the great championships in Boston lore with the original Big Three. I just think we've seen the latter part of Doc Rivers' career that where we know the end of the story. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to get excited about this Philadelphia 76ers team because I know even if they go up 3-1 in a series, that collapse with Doc Rivers is looming. And I think you're now having another situation where Joel Embiid is the guy who has to keep greasing the wheels of this team. And what do we know about Joel Embiid? It's that if he doesn't get to rest throughout the season, come playoff time, he's going to be banged up. He's going to be spent. I love Joel Embiid. Don't get me wrong. I think he should have been the MVP the last 2 years. I think, his ability to keep this team afloat when his best player is a hobbled Tobias Harris playing next to him, a Furkan Korkmaz that sometimes looks like Luka Doncic and sometimes looks like Dave Sharapan on the court. There's just little to get me excited about this team. I think last night showed you when they play top flight competition, especially on the road, they're overmatched. They're overgunned. They can beat up on teams like the Hornets. They can beat up on teams that are maybe on the same level as them. But even if it's a team that's a tick above, like you saw last night with the Cleveland Cavaliers, they do not have the horses to keep up. They don't have the rotation to keep up. And Joel Embiid, for as incredible as he is in today's NBA, you can't only have a center and a bunch of role players and expect to be a solid team. So I think Harden coming back will be a boost. But Jeff, I think Philadelphia 76ers fans are in for heartbreak if they try and buy into another championship run. I think there's a lot of good teams in the East this year, the Boston Celtics notwithstanding.
So if you take a look at last year, we were 4, 5, 6 games below 500 at Christmas, and then actually in January we stumbled as well. Coach, who's no longer with us, has a big sit down with Jason and Jalen. Says, "Are you guys going to buy in now or not?" And they go on the magical run, and the rest is history. There, with their start, and we haven't even talked about the Bucks. You just talked about the Cavaliers, and now you're sitting in your situation, and you talk about Doc, and you talk about the pieces that you have there. Do you think do you panic at this point? Do you make a move you shouldn't make it, or is this something? Hey, look at what Boston did last year, guys. Let's get everyone healthy. Let's get Maxey healthy. Let's get Harden healthy. Let's all start playing together. Let's get through Christmas, the new year, and let's start put things together.
Well, I think it's a great point, Jeff, and it's just how the NBA is set up. I mean, it's almost like if you're even a decent team, you have to try to miss the playoffs, right? Because I mean, half of the conference ends up making the playoffs anyways. So, yeah, they'll be in the dance, and I think your point is a fair one, where it's keep it on float. Just don't have that horrible stretch where everything is falling. Everybody, falls out of grace. Everybody does, starts not buying in on the message. But the problem is, I don't see who this Sixers team goes toe to toe with for a 7-game series and takes down currently. Now, there can still be some potential moves on the horizon, but I think you still have a massive lack of 3-point shooting on the 76ers team, and you need 3-point shooting in today's NBA. You can't just be driving it into the paint and two-balling people and trying to get Joel Embiid to the foul line. That's all good and well until you go up against a more old school style ref crew where you're not getting to the line as much, where you're not getting those bonus points on top, where you're not getting key players in foul trouble. So I think they'll be fine, Jeff. They'll be in the playoffs, sure. I don't know. Maybe let's talk after Christmas and see how I feel, because I'm still all locked in on football. Joel Embiid may have said that the 76ers season didn't start until the end of the World Series and the Phillies were done. NBA season for me, other than the bets I cash following the ECSI VIP, basketball season doesn't start to me until we put out the milk and cookies for Santa Claus.
There is a coach available. I don't know if he got blackballed, Udoka, who was going to go to the Nets. I don't know if there was a memo sent around saying to the rest of the NBA, hey guys.
But the thing is that they're not going to fire Doc Rivers. Their chance to do it was in the offseason. Sixers aren't the kind of club that's going to fire a guy in season. They've tied their wagon to him, for better or for worse. Trust me, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm eating my words, but I think Doc Rivers is sticking around. I would love to have Udoka, because look at what he did with a team that was dead in the water last year, Jeff. And we won't debate, the firing and whatever. The only reason that he was fired had to do with a policy with the Boston Celtics. It was an interpersonal or an inter-office relationship that was a no-go, written in stone from the Boston Celtics. Whether it was consensual or not, it doesn't matter. I still think Udoka's one hell of a coach. I think, maybe he just made a mistake, and it's a shame. Hopefully he's able to get back out there and coach, because, without Udoka last year, I don't think the Celtics go on the run that they did go on.
Last question. Trey Turner or Bogarts? What are you hearing?
Yes. The answer is yes. Give me all of them, Jeff. They need something bringing in there. I did see the Phillies are in play for the top 4 shortstops is what they were saying. I'd really love to bring Trey Turner in here, because not only is he bringing a strong bat, but what he does in the field is something special. It can allow Bohm to maybe get a little bit more comfortable. It adds another bat that, while we're waiting for Bryce Harper to come back from his elbow surgery, that can keep this team afloat. It's just so tough to go on those World Series runs, Jeff. So I'm hoping that the Phillies didn't use all the gas in their tank. Bogarts, Turner, I don't care who they bring in, Jeff. Pull out the checkbook and bring them all to Philly, because I want to be dancing on my own again sometime soon, brother.
Oh, my God. Blink and boom, it's 33 minutes deep. You can follow Dan at Newbie Talks, at Bet on Lacrosse. Of course, the one and only great cash consideration show, Wager Talk, 8:30 a.m. WEEU, Premier Lacrosse. Dan, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching back with you next Thursday. How's that sound?
Always a pleasure, Jeff. I look forward to it every week. So, hey, let's keep cashing these tickets at the Garden in the meanwhile, and hopefully we get home this Eagles one. So in case people are just joining us again, too, we got some plays for you dropped. I got the stamp of approval from my guy, Jeffrey Dawson, over Ramondre Stevenson, receiving yards over the 10.5 in the first half for the Bills on the team total, and that's how we're betting today. So hopefully 2 winners. We'll talk about it Thursday, Jeff. Always a pleasure, man.
Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest on Twitter. Go follow Dan at Newbie Talks. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll be back in about an hour, me and Riley, for the closing bell. See you soon.